Thanks for making some time.
No problem at all.
Good to finally meet you. Don't want to waste too much of your time, so I can just jump right into it. Kind of looked into your background a bit, and it was really cool. Just reading through your LinkedIn, it seems like you've taken a lot of different paths along the way.
Yeah.
I guess when you were younger, can you talk a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing?
We're going way back.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Oklahoma, and how do you want me to spend time on childhood stuff?
Yeah, I guess more about, I don't know, I guess your family and if you had any passions growing up. I know you did track at Cornell, but if there were any things that stuck out to you, some people say they knew they wanted to be X when they were 15 years old.
Yeah.
They had no idea, and what you kind of got started getting interested in.
Yeah, sure. So growing up, always very active and into sports. So in elementary school, was playing soccer, basketball, just running around, just very active. Track. When I got into junior high, I started to focus more on basketball and track.
Gotcha.
And just thoroughly enjoyed it. Played any chance I got, and multiple teams, that type of stuff. It's interesting, as a parent now, I have an appreciation for what my mom had to go through. Like, there was in junior high basketball practices one year were before school. So she was taking me to school, at 6 a.m.
Yep. And as a kid, you think that's normal.
Yeah. You're just like, come on, let's go. Thinking nothing of it.
Yeah.
But sports have always been a part of my life. And then in high school, I played basketball. And my senior year, when I was done with basketball, the track coach asked me if I wanted to try and high jump. I'd high jumped in junior high. And then just stopped to focus on basketball.
So senior spring, and just kind of looking for
Yeah, and it was, I could always jump really high, and so went out and started high jumping, and my mom, being my mom, I'd already, I applied to Cornell, early decision, so only school I applied to undergrad. I had all these other applications that I was just delaying, hoping I would get into Cornell because I just filled out one. Got in.
Was there any reason for Cornell?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, between my sophomore and junior year, Cornell has a summer program. It was a 6-week summer program, and in Ithaca, New York, is gorgeous.
Good in the summer.
And I went up there and just absolutely was just blown away and loved it. My roommate in that summer program is my best friend today. We were roommates all through Cornell. Everything was really cool.
That's awesome.
So really enjoyed that summer. And so then it was just like, that's where I wanted to go. It just felt right. And so applied early, got in early so I didn't have to apply to any other schools. And then once basketball ended, I was just, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But my mom, being my mom, reached out to the Cornell track coach and said, "Hey, how high are the high jumpers there jumping? My son's coming and he high jumps was high jumping this spring." And so it turned out I was at the level of Cornell high jumpers, and so I joined the track team when I got there.
Walked on the team.
Yeah, and had a lot of fun with that. But basketball was kind of always my passion, first passion, and it ultimately ended my track career because of I had missed a track practice because I had a big engineering project that was due. Yep. And I finished it up at about 11 o'clock, and there was this intramural basketball game at 11 that I went to play, and I sprained my ankle. Oh. And this was 2 weeks before the indoor championships.
Oh, man.
And so, I was able to still go to the indoor championships. Didn't do nearly as well as I probably would have. And afterwards, a couple of days later, I was playing another just a pickup basketball game, sprained my other ankle. And the track coach was like, "What are you, is this really what you want?" I was like, "No, I'm much more interested in just kind of playing around." Yeah. So that kind of officially ended my track career.
What year was that? Sophomore?
That was my junior year at Cornell. And but always remained active and participating in sports and all those things. So when I left Cornell, I I had mechanical engineering. I was a mechanical engineering major, so started to work for a company that was based here in Boston, Stone and Webster, which is an engineering and construction company, with the idea that I would be going to Ghana on assignment. So I, after a few months in the Boston office, went to Ghana, and this was in the late 90s. And spent 2 years in Ghana building a power plant, which was just an absolutely incredible experience. So when I got there, it was literally, they just cleared the jungle and it was just dirt. And when I left, there was a power plant that, you know, was it was one of those, it was a rare time where in a construction, especially in like a power plant, in an area like that, it is each day, you know, once things go above ground, you go, and when you leave, you see progress. Yeah. Like the pipe is, you know, there's another 100 feet of pipe that's laid, and you can see this happening. And while we were doing this, building the power plant, the entire country of Ghana was going through a power rationing. There was just not enough power for the country, which meant that there were areas of the country that had power for 12 hours, and then would not have power for 12 hours. And Ghana, you know, 0 longitude, 0 latitude is, you know, a mile off the coast of Ghana. Mm-hmm. So it's like on the equator. Yeah, and so that is a really challenging situation. But it was one of those things where it was very fulfilling, because it was, when the power plant came online, it provided power to a country, which was pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
How big was your team working on that?
So it was really interesting, because I was 24 when I was there, and I was responsible for the mechanical and electrical subcontractor. So I ran that, and there was about 900 workers just on that contract, and then there were other civil.
So you were running 900 workers?
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. It's one of those things where you know, it was hard to find expats to go on assignments, and so if there were people who were there who could take on more responsibilities, they just gave them to them. And so when I first went there, I was working for the project manager, mm-hmm. and after 6 months, he went on vacation for 2 weeks, and literally every morning I was calling him, and this is like before caller ID, and he went back home to Texas. And I would literally be waiting, you know, I didn't want to call him before 7 a.m., but at 7 a.m. his time, to the point where his wife would just answer the phone, "Good morning, Marcus." And I was like, "Hey, let me talk to Frank." And then the next time he went on vacation 6 months later, you know, I called him maybe every other day. And then the third time he went on vacation, he called me like, "What the hell's going on?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You haven't called me at all." I was like, I got it now. I know what needs to be done. And then when he retired, because of that, they just gave it to me to run, because I had been working so closely with him, and was capable of doing it. So it was a pretty rare opportunity to kind of take on more and more responsibility, which was really, really cool. It was definitely one of those things where it was just kind of getting tossed in the ocean and just see if you can swim. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed it. But when I came back, I wanted to get into the consumer world. Mm-hmm. And so I went to grad school, I got my MBA, and while I was in grad school, I worked at Bose for doing an internship, which mm-hmm. I absolutely loved. And I felt like it was a great way to transition. Bose is a great brand and a great opportunity to transition from an engineering background, because it's an engineering-driven company for sure, into, you know, a more marketing and brand-focused career, because Bose is such a great brand. Yeah. So that was a great experience. And then while I was coming out of MIT, the opportunity came up at Reebok, where they had a rotational program where they were looking to bring in people who did not have industry experience, which was really, really an amazing opportunity, because the footwear apparel industry is very hard to get into, and then people do move around quite a bit within the industry,
especially if you're not a designer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, it felt like the perfect opportunity. So it was like trying to decide between going back to Bose or to Reebok, and I felt like, you know, Reebok, that was the only time that I could make that jump. Yeah. So went to Reebok and went into this rotational program, but very early on, Paul Fireman wanted somebody who was new to the company to work with him, and kind of, you know, for him to impart wisdom on and kind of give some special projects too. So I started working directly with Paul. which was really an amazing experience. And he, and along the way while I was at Reebok, I started working with Michael Schaefer, my current partner, on projects, and that's how we got to know each other. And Paul, in the end, put me. Reebok was in the process of launching a new version of the Reebok pump, and he said there was no one person in the company that knew everything that was going on with the pump. Advanced R&D was doing things with the pump technology. Marketing was working on it from a different angle and all these things, but there wasn't one person who was kind of aware of all of those things. So he put me on that project to kind of help coordinate all those efforts. And that's when Michael and I started working together. And then shortly thereafter, he sold Reebok to Adidas. Yeah. So then that kind of changed things a bit. So I was on the marketing integration team with on the Reebok side, working with the marketing integration team of Adidas, which was an amazing opportunity to see kind of two. Reebok at the time was a $4 billion brand. Adidas was an $8 billion brand. Nike was 12 at the time, and bringing them together was kind of a peer to Nike. And so it was a really good experience to see how those things happened. I left shortly thereafter to help a former chief marketing officer from Reebok start a venture capital firm.
Breakaway,
yeah, Breakaway.
So I used to work on private equity side.
Okay.
I know them pretty well.
Yeah. So I left Reebok to help Danny start Breakaway.
Yep.
And which was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And then I ended up stepping into one of our portfolio companies, Idea Paint. Yeah. And
Babson company.
Yeah. And had a great time in Idea Paint, and also kind of realized I like the operating side of businesses more than the investing side of businesses.
Gotcha.
And Denny and I would talk, periodically about kind of, life after Idea Paint and all those things. And then Michael and I started getting together kind of on a monthly basis just to have breakfast and talk about, wouldn't it be great to start something, and what would we start? And my time at Idea Paint, I realized how many startups need a lot of marketing and branding help and design help, but it's very difficult for them to get that. And
targeted or price-wise?
Price-wise. So you have big agencies. A lot of people in big agencies want to work with startups or start their own thing. But they're getting paid within the agencies, and there's a lot of risk associated with starting your own business. Yeah. So I like working with startups, but the challenge is startup budgets are tiny. Agencies will cut their fees in half, but they're still more than what the startups can afford. So it creates a bit of a tension.
Gotcha.
And I'd experienced that firsthand when I was when I went into Idea Paint. I went into set up marketing and was working with agencies and all these things, and so I experienced it. So Michael and I decided, to start our own marketing and design agency with the idea of launching our own brands out of that agency and helping clients who had similar marketing and design needs. And it grew organically. We started with the first brand that we launched. I'm sure Michael talked about Surfright.
Well, it's kind of like the marketing version of Breakaway in a way.
Yeah.
Building companies out of it and putting your own people in it. But yeah, he told me about your first surf brand. I looked it up as well. It's, the Fuck Summer shirt.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a great way for us to start. We learned so much because we literally did everything ourselves, right? So it was, Michael, in his basement, me in my basement, and then early on, we hired Todd. I don't know if you met Todd.
I haven't met him yet.
Yeah, super early on, and then so Todd was working in his living room, and we're FaceTiming and doing things that way, and then as things started to grow, Todd got stir crazy in his apartment, and he's like, I need a desk.
Yeah.
So we got him a desk at Idea Space on Boylston.
Yeah.
And he worked out of there. I would go in a couple days a week, and other times I was just working from home.
Yeah.
Mike would come up periodically, and at that point it was really anytime we would launch something for Surfright, whether it was the website, or product, it would always lead to more customers on the agency side. So the agency customers or clients, I should say, were all organically kind of identify it. People reaching out to us from our network, just tapping us on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, who did your website?"
Yeah.
But it was good. It was one of those things where it really helped us to understand how things work. You know, from websites and email blasts, content creation.
And you were learning on someone else's dollar.
Well, we were learning on Surfright on our, and then kind of honing on some of these other things. And so Michael, would never have said he was a photographer or a videographer, but he learned rapidly and is now one of the best I've ever seen. And so by creating all the content, for Surfright on our own and doing all those things, we learned a lot. Mm-hmm. We were able to help clients, be successful as well. And we're able to fund kind of the early days of Noble. And then,
so before you made that switch, sorry to stop you, but I think for most people, a switch from corporate life to creating your own job, especially at an age, I don't know how old you were at that point, but you might have had a family. Yeah. What was that process like for you? Was it nerve-wracking? Were you excited?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, right? So it's one of those things where we had talked about it quite a bit.
Your monthly breakfast.
And how great would it be and all these things. And then, we realized that if we didn't do it, then we weren't going to do it and we were going to regret it. Mm-hmm. And so it was just, Michael and I have been very kind of aligned kind of on our view of the business, what we want out of the business, and where it's headed. Mm-hmm. So that's worked out very, very well, even from the beginning. Yeah. And so we both just realized that it was we needed to pull the trigger and at least try and do it. Otherwise, it would never happen, and we would just live with that regret. And then talking with our wives because we do have families and kids.
That's key.
and it was one of those things where it's definitely Michael has 3 boys, I have 2 girls. Mm-hmm. It's not, we were not 20-year-olds living on couches. I mean, we had homes, we had mortgages, we had we were saving money for our children's education and all these things. So it was a really big deal. But we did believe that we could be successful, and we felt like there was a need in the market. We very early on, recognized we wanted to start an athletic footwear and apparel brand, but we thought that starting with Surfright, Michael had a non-compete with Reebok, so we were super naive about how fast we would have.
How long was the non-compete for?
I think it was like a 9-month. Okay. And so we were super naive about how fast. We were like, look, with Michael's background, my background, we're going to have this thing up and running in no time. We better start somewhere else. Yeah. But the good thing about starting with Surfright is that we learned a lot. Yeah. We learned a ton. Mm-hmm. And that, once we started with Noble, we were a lot smarter. And it took longer than we thought it would to get it kind of up and running. But I have to say, once it kind of came online, Noble took on a life of its own very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so we, officially launched in January 2015 at the East Coast Championships.
I heard this story.
Yeah. And 15 minutes before the launch, we launched at midnight. 15 minutes before that, we were on the phone with the factory, and they said, hey, the product you're going to have, we told you you're going to have in 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to have in 4 or 5 months. And then suddenly it went from a 2 to 3 week pre-sale to a 4 to 5 month pre-sale. We had no idea what to expect. Todd was on the call. He drops off to update all the emails that were about to go out for the launch. And at midnight we launched, and at 12:01 we started getting sales, which was just mind-boggling to us. Yeah. Very, very exciting. And it was just kind of the beginning of it all. And then by the time everything sold out, so by the time production was done, the product was already sold, and we'd already placed another production order. So when the product came in, it literally was just how fast can we package it up and send it all out. And then we've kind of rewind, press play repeatedly since then. So it's been a really phenomenal ride so far.
Definitely. So you obviously have an engineering background. Do you ever find yourself missing that, or do you think it was a kind of a perfect pivot into the marketing and operations side?
Yeah. So I don't. No, I don't miss the kind of
laying pipes and guns.
Yeah. But you know, I cherish that experience. I think it was absolutely amazing. It was, you know,
It makes who you are.
Yeah, it was incredibly long days, hard work, 7 days a week for 2 years.
Sweltering heat.
Yeah, on the equator.
My sister lived in Ghana for a couple months. Too.
Yeah. And it was a really, really great experience. I was working with expats from all over the world, getting exposed to just life beyond what I had seen, which was really, really cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was really, really cool. But I'm happy with what we're doing now, and even corporate America, right? It is. Big companies, when you're dealing with billion-dollar brands, the planning, the lead times on, what it takes to get product to market it's so long, and there's so many people that are involved in these things, that it's like, sometimes they're like glaciers when it comes to changing direction. It just takes a long time.
Exactly.
And we're so close to market because we have to be, that we can very quickly make decisions and change directions.
Cut out the middleman, so you don't have to worry about anybody else.
Yeah, and it's in our customers guide us, and it's a really cool experience. And it's when you get it right, it's great. When you stumble, they let you know repeatedly, and that's the power of social media is incredible. So it allows us to reach people in pretty much every country on earth, very, very quickly. But if there's any problems, these people are DMing you personally,
or putting it out,
or both, right? And so it is a very personal thing.
But that's what's good about your sector is it seems like the CrossFit community is very vocal about what they like, what they don't like.
And so it's word of mouth is very, very powerful within that community. It's an amazing community for sure.
So I talked to Michael about this a little bit. If it doesn't have to be specifically to Noble, but I always like to talk about maybe one of your biggest setbacks that you had, a time where you thought maybe that it was the wrong decision, or maybe you should have stayed in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering.
Did you ask Michael this question?
I did.
I'm curious if we have the same one.
So I mean, I know every person has a different one, and I like to go as personal as far. So some people like to just kind of do a typical story, but if there's any time that the entrepreneur story essentially, like where you might have stayed up all night and they're like, holy shit.
Definitely have one. So in 2014, so I talked about the work. There's a lot of work that went into Noble before we launched, but in 2014 we had an initial shoot. And we went out to the CrossFit Games in 2014 and had some product that a few people were going to wear, but it was delayed, and so it was literally shipped to our hotel. And we got it, and I mean it was super exciting because this is like this is supposed to be the first product, and we opened them up, and it just wasn't right. It was like deflating. Because it was, here we are at the games, there's athletes, and this is before they were all required to wear Reebok, ready to wear product, and this was going to be how we're going to, we're here. And we so wanted it to work. We so wanted it to be right. We had, and at this point, this is also, we had put a lot of time, energy, effort, money, and you talk about, go back to the, we have, wives, children,
this is personally funded.
Yeah. It's like, and at that stage, it was every time money needed to go into the business, we were taking out our wallets, or we were taking from our savings. There was, it was real.
So you need to make some money.
Yeah, exactly. And what it meant was, if we said no to this, it was going to be 6 to 9 months. We recognized that before we'd have more product, and made it was a hard decision, but it was an obvious decision for us. It was just like, this sucks, but we can't introduce something we're not proud of. So that's one that definitely kept us up, but we knew we were making the right decision. The big question was then the economics around all of that stuff, and all
what's
of that.
Next?
Yeah. But it was thankfully we kept pushing, and we got it right, and got to a point where we had a product that we were very proud of, and that was an important thing to keep in mind. You know, like if you're going to launch a company, you need to have something you're proud of. If you're not proud of it, then
it's a bad way to start.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially getting
and we've kind of held ourselves to that standard ever since. And with a name like Noble, you gotta cut out the bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And then just for a final question, a question I ask everyone: what do you think has been the best piece of advice that you've gotten along the way, or something that you believe is kind of your personal mantra that you bring every day?
Yeah, so this is it's a good question. For me, it is absolutely, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. So it's just one of those things where we can have, like in those times, it was just like, oh my God, you know, what are we gonna do? There's like, we've got to, you know, there's a lot of work we have to do. It's 9 more months where we're not gonna have any revenue coming in off Noble. You know, it felt really bad. Mm-hmm. You know, in hindsight, I can look at it a little bit more clearly and be like, well, you know, in that was this opportunity to get it right. And then also, you know, it's never as good, you know, as it seems. Is we've got these amazing highs around product launches, and people get really excited, you know, but it is it's a single launch,
mm-hmm. and you're only as good as your next product.
Yeah, and it can all go away tomorrow. So let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
And let's, you know, learn and keep going. Stay hungry, stay humble, and keep pushing it.
I like that. Awesome.
That's very cool.
That's from you. Thank you for taking the time to
no problem at all.